You're listening to Keepers of the Clow, a Cardcaptors podcast, available on YouTube, Spotify, and other services where you can get podcasts. Keepers of the Clow is a fan-produced podcast. We are not affiliated with Nelvana, Pioneer Entertainment, Madhouse, Clamp, or any other relevant license holders. Any statements and views expressed are our own and not endorsed by any license holder.
No, I gotcha. Well, how have you been? Anything exciting going on?
Nothing crazy. I did get I talked about this on the stream when I did the chapter review. I have a podcasting arm now. I bought one of those things that holds my microphone, so I'm not doing the whole.
What's your mic?
I got a Snowball.
Is it Yeti or?
I don't remember exactly what it is. It's it just says blue on the front of it. It's some kind of Snowball mic. Yeah, I think it's a Yeti.
Blue Yeti. Yeah, I have one of their other models. They're good for this. I was just wondering because in one of the projects I'm doing, the voice actors were discussing like setups amongst themselves, and I was looking at it and I was like, oh, this is so good. Like this information. And because I have one who does like professional stuff, and I think she was like, giving us all the tea. So it was good.
Well, that's good. I'm already enjoying
that's exciting.
This one. Yeah, it's great because now I don't have the big box in front of me that was being used as a stand to get the microphone in front of my face. Now I just have an arm and I can touch my keyboard and interact with my screens as necessary. It's much better.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it. That's like an upgrade thing I'll do eventually when I have a more locked in space because I'm like constantly moving where I'm recording.
Oh yeah.
What about this episode? I guess I should tell you about the or the listeners too. We talked about I had a Halloween event or something, right? I don't remember.
I did see an announcement for it.
That was okay. So that was the Moonstar Halloween special, which literally has nothing to do with Halloween other than the fact that it's not a Sailor Moon episode. And the wisdom behind that for me was two parts. First, Kathy Griffin is one of my favorite stand-up comedians for several reasons, but at one point she did a comedy CD when she was like aggressively trying to win a Grammy, and she called it Sucking It for the Holidays, which she just tells you the title of the thing right at the beginning, and then she goes, and after that, this has nothing to do with the holidays, I'm just trying to win a Grammy. And I always thought that was hilarious. So there's that. And then the idea of like, we're usually a Sailor Moon like podcast, and then on Halloween we put on a costume of another anime, right? So like that's the other thought behind it. We did Rurouni Kenshin. Are you familiar?
Yes, I did. I did watch plenty of Kenshin on Toonami back in the day.
I think it's one of probably Chris's favorite animes. I didn't catch much. Were you into it a lot?
I watched it. I watched the entire first. I watched all the way through the Kyoto arc, which I think is. I think that's basically everything that Toonami aired. So I've never seen, I think, any of the episodes past that, if there are any. I'm pretty sure there is. I know how the manga ends, and then I know they announced a remake of it, but I haven't bothered to watch it. Like, I liked it at the time. I'm not like super into it now. There's nothing like drawing me away from it. There's nothing drawing me to it. So
I have the nostalgia factor where I'm like, oh, I remember this, but I've never sat down and formally like gone all the way through.
Yeah, there's definitely nostalgia for it, but like you saw the because I sent you my top 10 anime list earlier. Kenshin was initially in there for like that nostalgia factor, but then I remembered that like I liked Yu Yu Hakusho way more during that time. So like
love that.
He just punched Kenshin right out of that spot.
Rightfully so. Yu Yu Hakusho is, I think, I don't want to say more nuanced, but it's nuanced in a way that I relate to more than Kenshin. I love anything dealing with spirits and all of that.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I think the way that they made that his like superpower was really fascinating, right?
Yeah, it had a big influence on the way I write, like design power sets in that vein. Just in general. I mean, I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and such, and like, I mean, it's very much kind of the same deal, but like, I guess with Yu Yu Hakusho, there was, with Yusuke, there was always that element that he didn't have unlimited energy, so he couldn't just keep shooting all day. He had to punch people. Whereas, you watch Dragon Ball Z and Vegeta's got just unlimited energy. Throw all the balls at him. It's fine.
I love Vegeta. He's one of my favorite villains.
I'm nostalgic for Dragon Ball Z, but yeah, I think Yu Yu Hakusho was just more creative in a show that was very in in a show that had a very similar setup of just it's a show with a lot of fighting in it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was just more creative.
No, 100%. It's funny you brought up Dragon Ball Z because I have some old tapes of that too. I get them in the anime lots and stuff. And I put one in just to see, because it's been probably 20 years or more. I don't know, since I've watched any. And I was like, I remember this being better, to be honest.
Well, did you accidentally put in the Oceans dub? Because that might be it.
It could be that. The person who, no shade to them, I'm sure they were doing their best.
Right.
But whoever was voicing Gohan, it just didn't match the character's vibe to me, because he's so wacky, but he's also supposed to be kind of like a hunk. And the guy was like 100% wacky. Do you know what I mean? And then also sounded a lot older than the character.
Oh, you're talking like the Boo Saga Gohan then.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, because Gohan was a teenager in the Boo. He's a kid all throughout the.
It's when he's the Super Saiyan man.
Yeah, okay, that's the Boo Saga.
I appreciated that goofiness of it or whatever, but the dub itself was a little tough.
So I think that would be the Funimation dub, I'm pretty sure, because even though Oceans actually did, so it like the history, I'm going to get on a tangent here. The history of Dragon Ball Z in America is a little interesting. Like the Oceans dub did the first run of the series up to about halfway through the Frieza saga or so. And yeah, that's the famous dub where like the over 9,000 meme comes from.
It's over 9,000! What, 9,000?
That comes from that dub.
That's so funny.
So apparently, around the time of the Frieza saga, Funimation got their hands on the licensing in America for it, and the dub switched. Like it switched up all the cast and did. It finished out Frieza, it did the Cell Saga, and it did the Boo Saga. What I found out years later is that actually in Canada, I guess, which is where the Oceans Group is, they actually did the entire Dragon Ball Z through the Boo Saga with the dub cast from the Oceans Group. So I think
there's two.
Yeah, there is a dub where I think it's Scott McNeil is the voice of Piccolo through the entire thing.
Gohan may have that power, but it doesn't matter. He doesn't thirst for battle and mayhem. He's not a fighter like you.
I might like that better. I just like Canadian. It seems I like Canadian dubs. I'm partial to two so far.
Yeah, and the Oceans Group is the talent pool that Cardcaptors was dubbed out of. So there you go. There's the tie-in back to the topic.
No, but this is interesting. That this is what the intro is for, is to kind of like give us a broader chat moment, you know, and then we focus in on the episode. But I love that it is the same talent pool, because I think Nelvana, I don't know, I think they did a great job, and I know a lot of people don't agree.
So far, we're 6 episodes in. Well, we're talking about the 6th episode, but yeah, the Cardcaptors dub is much more enjoyable than I remember it, and I as a kid, I liked it. I mean, that's why I fell in love with the series and why I sought out the original. Same. I think maybe in the 20 years since I saw it when I was a young lad, I think in that 20 years I've definitely let the popular impression of the Cardcaptors dub color my idea of its quality. Or rather, I let the popular impression of how the Nelvana dub butchered Cardcaptor Sakura, I let that color the idea, even though, at least from a purely technical standpoint, from generally speaking, the writing of the episodes, the music so far, and most of the acting, I'm being generous here a little bit on that last one, but the acting's pretty good for an 11-year-old. Like,
for the age group they pulled
Carly
from,
McKillop does a good job so far. I do have some notes about this episode, but
yes, in
general, Carly McKillop for the first 5 episodes has been doing pretty well.
Well, and her voice is very distinctive in a way that that is one of the things I think the Canadian dubs did the best, was each character sounds unique to them. If they're a main character, all through Sailor Moon, every single one, it's like, oh, that is clearly like Neptune, or that is very clearly Mercury. And it's the same thing in Cardcaptors, where Madison, like we've talked about her voice quite a lot, even Sakura's voice when the lines aren't perfect. Every time I hear that voice, I'm automatically like Sakura Avalon. I'm not like generic anime girl 5. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Carly definitely had a she has a voice that I have never really heard anywhere else. And again, that was her voice when she was 11. I don't know what she sounds like now. She is apparently she's a musician, but I've never found her band. Or let me correct that. I have found her band. I think I have it saved somewhere. It's like two girls in a band or something. It's her band with her sister, Britt McKillop, who is a
Oh.
voice actor in the only thing I know her as is Princess Cadence in the Gen 4 My Little Pony. Britt McKillop's done all sorts of other stuff, but yeah, that's Carly McKillop's sister.
I keep forgetting, but are you based in Canada or the US?
I'm in the US.
Okay, so I was just thinking about this, but isn't it kind of weird how like sometimes people will really blow up in like even the UK or Canada and we just have no idea here sometimes. You know what I mean? Like Kylie Minogue is really popular. I think it is in the UK before she ever blew up over here. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like it's like how Cardcaptor Sakura is really popular in Latin America, and I never knew that.
Yeah. Or like, I mean, Sailor Moon kind of took off in every country. There's just something about it. But yeah. Anyway, are you ready to get into this week's episode?
Yeah, I think we can. I think we can probably talk about it.
I was already late for dinner, so I thought I'd take a shortcut through the woods. I thought it was a firefly, but I was wrong.
What is our title this week?
So the title of this one, the dub title, is Seeing is Believing.
Yes. And the Japanese was Sakura and Memories of Her Mother.
Yep. Because this is the first time where we get to see her mother, whose dub name is Natasha. I don't know if it was ever said in the episode.
My mom, Natasha, began modeling in junior school.
But it's a factoid, I think, on the trading cards. That's what her mom's name is.
I love that. Okay, we'll continue in the episode, but that is another thing that is sort of special about these shows, where it's like the universe got built out further from just the anime in both Sailor Moon and Cardcaptors, where there are certain facts like that only apply probably in the Cardcaptors universe that are only in a trading card fact or like a random book, right?
Yeah, probably, because I think I said in the last episode, the only reason I know Fujitaka's name is Aiden is because he has a trading card with his name on it.
Yeah, I love that, because it was the way of building out a universe in a fun, creative way that you couldn't just like create another episode for yourself, right? How do we actually enter or start this episode?
So this episode begins with a narration from Nikki, who is describing that she was walking in the woods and she found a ghost. It is not, of course, a ghost. Spoiler, it's this week's Clow card, but it looks like a ghost because that's the gimmick of this card. It looks like things.
And
that's it's just a quick narration, which I don't think for the most part it was edited at all. This is an episode that has a lot of cuts in it, but they're kind of really haphazard, just kind of like clipping out here and there to get down to that 18-minute runtime, give or take.
I was going to say, I don't think they were able to actually chop full scenes out of this one because of
surprised.
Really? Because I was going to say Julian, but we'll get there. Yeah, I like the orb thing. Immediately I got Stranger Things vibes with the going into the woods and then there's like something dangerous there. What happens with the thing before we go to Sakura at school though? The little orb. How would you describe it? Because it was kind of funny.
The orb's just a will-o-wisp. And then it turns into, if I remember right, and I might already be mixing this up because that's just how this goes. I believe it turns into like some kind of like fairly traditional eye monster kind of ghost from Japanese mythology. It's very distinct. Yeah. It's either that or it turns into a woman. I don't remember which one happens when.
No, the first one was
so it does happen. It does turn into just kind of a generic like sock monster with a big eyeball.
Yeah, right away I love that. I love ghost things, so that made me happy.
Well, so does
and Yes. And then, but the thing was, she wasn't hurt, was she? She was
No.
fine. She was just spooked out or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It was her spooked out, and then they cut it out of Cardcaptors, but I'm pretty sure that I think that sequence is broken by Sakura screaming. Because Sakura doesn't like scary stories.
Oh, maybe. We'll get into the point, but that's evidence for something else I'm going to talk about later. But in this part you're talking about, though, I don't know if you clocked it. There was another school assignment that they were supposed to be dealing with or something.
I did indeed write down with 3 exclamation points, science project.
Bells? We can't! I mean, well, don't we have that big science project due at school tomorrow? It's not due until next Tuesday.
Yeah. I thought that was funny because now I'm looking for it. So every time it happens, I'm kind of like,
I don't know why it bugs me so much, but it is absolutely it's just a little bugbear that I have.
I know why. It's because it's a lazy thing to do. Why can't you be more creative? Like they just settled on one thing and they were like, that is how we're going to fill dialogue when we need to. And it's lazy. It's the same issue I have with Sailor Moon Crystal's lazy animation. When we as consumers can tell companies, if you're paying attention, who do this, when you're being lazy, and we don't like it. It's not nice. So stop it, because we're paying you money for this stuff. So make it good. Thank you. Anyway, but don't you think?
No, it's definitely, yeah. I think that's why it bugs me. It is just the laziest filler dialogue. It's like, oh well, they're kids. They go to school. School kids have projects. Therefore, they're always working on a project.
Yeah, I'm like, there's more to being a kid than doing homework. Ew. Anyway, we're going to stop beating them up for it, but I did think it was funny.
Yeah.
Also, did you notice, I don't know if this happens a lot or if it's an anime thing, but the girl with pigtails kept having no nose in this scene. And like, I know when they zoom out a lot, sometimes that happens, but it was so close up that it made me uncomfortable. Did you notice?
And it's gone.
It didn't stand out to me, but yes, you're right. The girl's name is Chelsea. Yeah, I mean, that just happens in anime where they just skimp on details, especially in distance shots. The fact that her nose just keeps disappearing entirely is interesting, but when I go back and edit it, I'll maybe put up a compilation of disappearing noses, but it's normal. It's one of the quirks of the animation in Cardcaptor Sakura that's it's probably not the weirdest thing. This is like my 12th time through the series at this point, so I do other things to keep me busy, so I look for animation quirks now.
Yeah, that's how, well, I think every time you watch something, even if you've seen it before, if you're actually paying attention, you'll get something different out of it. Yeah. Because not only because you're looking for different things, but because as you grow in life, you change and you will have a different perspective on it than you did before. Does that make sense?
It does. And my perspective now is just looking for animation errors.
So. Yeah, you're like, where's the error? No, but I thought that nose was hilarious, though. It really is kind of weird when it happens. And they kind of, I don't know, they sort of just threw in here that Sakura, because they're walking through the woods and they're discussing mother things. It's like someone's mom's birthday is coming.
My mom's birthday's coming up really soon. What should I get her?
Yeah, it's Chelsea's mother's birthday.
Yeah, and Sakura was like, we hear her thinking, oh, this Sunday would have been my mom's birthday.
That's right. This Sunday would have been my mom's birthday.
I just wanted to know if that is the same way it was. Like, is her birthday supposed to be that soon, or was she just thinking about her?
It is. It is actually. This is a note that I made of this episode, is that the most of the dialogue in this episode is basically 1-to-1. Like they barely had to change anything in this particular episode.
Okay.
But a fun quirk, which only amuses me because I've thought about this way too much. So the year in the year that the anime takes place in is 1998. And Nadeshiko's birthday, I believe, was May 27th. And the punchline is that May 27th, or whenever Nadeshiko's birthday was supposed to be that year, wasn't on a Sunday.
That is funny.
It only stands out to me because the level of detail that they put into like background calendars and like just timing out the series was actually amazingly detailed if you actually look for it.
I have never even thought about
that one up.
And that one probably is just one of those things that they were like, we want it to not be on a weekday, for some reason, like because of the school thing. I don't know. I
It
don't even
might
know if the day of the week mattered.
it mattered to me only because I am
No,
crazy.
why they had to specify. I mean, they
Oh
could have just
well, yeah.
not.
They were just saying like that was just the dialogue choice. Was that yeah? This Sunday would have been my mom's birthday too. She's got a dead mom. She thinks about her mom sometimes.
Well, if they ever did a redub and rewrote that single line, just replace Sunday with soon. Like my mom's
Yeah,
birthday would have been soon.
it would have. Yeah, it would have been just as well. Like
Or this weekend.
I'm
That's
just
funny though.
giving the original animators some guff for using the wrong calendar, I guess.
God, guys, get it together.
Yeah, the background calendars are like so on point, but you got that one wrong.
One thing I noticed about this episode specifically, and this was where it came out more, we talked about how the character of Sakura Avalon is a lot stronger than, what is Sakura's real last name?
The Japanese name is Kinomoto.
That's what I thought. So yeah, it appears to, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like she's a lot more like together, I feel like. But the way this one was animated, they couldn't really like get around her being kind of wimpy.
Like they could not, though. Like has an actual like debilitating fear of ghosts. She does not like creepy things, and the Cardcaptors dub in later episodes actually does more or less acknowledge this phobia of hers, but they still try to downplay it. Whereas yes, in the original Cardcaptor Sakura, she is just a complete mess when the topic of ghosts comes up at all.
It seems out of place here, but they do, like you're saying, it by the end of the episode, we have a little better idea.
Yeah, she just they try to toughen her up a little bit, but yes, it's like just the animation itself shows you can't escape the fact that she is not having a good time.
It's just a crow.
Oh.
And we see the ghost, that's what we're calling it so far. Although we all
know what it is. It's a Clow card.
Yeah. To be honest, there are parts where I was like, is it her mom? Like, is this one of those things where they don't have a card and they're just throwing us off? But no. And then Madison describes the ghost as what?
A big hamburger. Huh? What?
She says it's a hamburger, which is, of course, just a sloppy dub choice because meat bun doesn't exist in Western cuisine. Sure, okay. It's like the Pokemon thing where you called a rice ball a jelly donut.
Yeah.
It's forgivable.
I love that.
It's silly, but it's forgivable.
Do you know why I love that? When you're, okay, think about it like, I'm going to take yours back. We're all like American tweens, and the internet is new to the point where Wikipedia doesn't exist. There's not all that information, and the adults in our lives never had the ability to research this stuff, right? So we're watching it, we see a rice ball and they call it a jelly donut, and we are trying to imagine what this snack that doesn't look like our jelly donut might be like. So we have now created like a rice jelly donut in our mind. Like it creates a weird food that doesn't exist, that if they hadn't made that choice, it's like it's fun. Like it's accidentally fun. This one doesn't look anything like a cheeseburger though. And so looking at it as a kid, I would have been like, that looks like a giant piece of garlic. Or something.
Yeah, you're right. They do look like garlic. Like unless you cut them open and you see all the delicious ground beef goodness inside.
Right. Knowing what it is as an adult, I wanted it, but like it looks good.
They are good. I've had them.
Yeah.
Manju are great. I believe that's what they call. I believe that's what that. It could have been a bean roll for all. I mean,
or a dumpling or something.
You can fill those things with anything, really, as long as you can get the dumpling, the material around it. But they're traditionally either like pork or bean stuff. So yeah, but point is, it's a manju.
Right. And then what happens after we get this discussion of how the ghost appears to everybody? They
cut to Sakura's house later where she's discussing with Kiro, where they go over the fact that she's afraid of ghosts, but Clow cards are a-okay. And they have a great moment where like Kiro is saying like, you got to get all these cards so that I can reclaim my true form. And she cuts away to think of like what his true form is, which is just.
That's why we have to capture those element cards, Sakura. My true form is pretty impressive, huh?
Is it really? Huh?
In her imagination, his true form is just a kaiju-sized Kiro-chan.
Yes. What does that word mean for people who don't know?
Kaiju is just giant monster. It's what Godzilla is. Godzilla is a kaiju.
Oh, right. And then I know that that's not what it is.
No, of course that's not what Kiro's actual form is, but
it's fun to see. Well, that's kind of like accidentally talking about what I was just saying with the kids of the imagination and the fake food. We're seeing it right there. Like overactive imagination. Kiro looks like Godzilla.
We're seeing a child's imagination. Like the best she can come up with is bigger Kiro.
Right.
And then you have Matt Hills just ad-libbed a rar.
And then Sakura and her dad are discussing her mom over dinner. And we learn that she has passed here, right? Or did we know? Well,
it was mentioned in the first episode that she passed. Right. Although, since this episode was not aired, as far as I know, like I have no idea when in the original Cardcaptors order you ever would have learned that Nadeshiko is dead. I suppose maybe you would have seen it in the episode where they actually play episode 1, which, as we established, episode 1 was played as episode like 21 in the Cardcaptors run. This is one of the several episodes where it wasn't aired in North America, as far as I understand.
I don't think so. I can look real quick. Hold on. I'm noticing most of the ones we've covered so far have not been aired.
Yeah, like the first.
I think one has.
Well, so this is episode 6. We have one more. That's episode 7, and so yeah, I think episodes 1 and 7 were aired. Both and 3. 1, 3, and 7 were aired radically out of order. But yeah, 2, 4, 5, and 6 were not aired.
Yeah,
at least not in the West.
I think it's wild that so many were cut right at the beginning, to be honest.
They really wanted to get to Shaoran like being in the show immediately, so they could balance out that boy-girl ratio.
God forbid a girl carries a show or whatever, but
what's the big deal, Sakura? You're a fearless card captor, remember?
I guess.
Her outfit that she has 2 this week.
Yeah, so jumping to the capture. So to get to that point, Tomoyo or Madison calls her and says that they've that more people went back to the forest and saw the ghost, and this motivates Sakura to actually. She has to go investigate this thing because it might be a Clow card. So yeah, they get to the forest and Sakura wears probably one of the ugliest costumes that Madison ever produced.
I'm so glad you said
that. That's the bunny suit, and
it's so ugly.
It's just it's bad. The one thing I will say about the bunny suit is that I think like the body part of it, I think that was used as a prototype for the sock costume that is eventually worn in the Judgment Against UA. I think like maybe Madison took that costume and reworked it into a much better costume later. That is my headcanon for it.
I want to look for that when we get there because that would actually be kind of great. Here's why it's so bad.
This is no one's favorite costume.
Yeah, for anyone who's not able to see it, the bunny outfit, it's kind of like a mix of a rabbit costume, like a cheap Halloween rabbit, but with a clown, sort of, because it has these like oversized pom-pom like buttons down the front.
Right.
And then these like, I don't know what you call it, like pantaloons or something, like
it's basically
out from a leotard.
It's basically a romper.
But it looks like she's wearing a diaper. It does.
Okay. Now, again, the picture's going to be up while we talk about this.
I'm just saying, that's the vibe, not over her clothes, like under her clothes. Right. Yeah, it gives that kind of shape.
It's got that poofy shorts thing, which is not the only time that she wears like that. Those poofy shorts must have been based off of something that existed in fashion at the time. Because you're right, they look like jester pantaloons or like those stripy like really puffy shorts that you see on jesters or and
then it's like Party City bunny ears that could have been cute
and a cheap set of bunny ears.
But the thing that drove me crazy about him is the way they were animated when she was flying. Mm-hmm. They were like clapping on top of her head. I was like, ew, what is this?
It's good attention to detail that at least they moved because they could have been really lazy and just.
I think they thought these have wire in them. Mm-hmm. what would they do? How would they? I think that like the logic of it just threw off the animator, and they were like, I don't know what to do with this.
They could have just been rigid.
That part, but that would have looked crazy too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they messed themselves up with the design of this one, and then trying to animate it moving, it just wasn't working. And that's probably why they've made a second one for later. Don't you think?
Well, no, actually, it plays exactly the same way in the manga with a different costume. So in the manga, she wears the bat costume that she actually wears in the next episode to break into the museum. So that costume that she's wearing in episode 7 is actually the costume that she wears in the manga for this confrontation. Just another manga difference. In the manga, they're actually over a lake, which is why she ends up almost drowning in the manga. Whereas, as we find out later here in the anime, she just falls off a cliff. It's the same level of danger, really, but just the setting changed a little bit. Nothing crazy.
That brings me to though, because where did we leave off? Hold on. So she's running through the woods in this horrible outfit.
Yep.
Chasing it on her fly thing, chasing this orb with her clapping bunny ears. And then it gets to the point where the orb does its thing and it shows us this lady.
Is that you, Mom?
And I thought the animation improved a lot here.
It did. They definitely focused a lot because so it turns into the image of her mother, and boy, there's a lot of moving parts of that animated sequence. So yes, I think they used a lot of budget on this specific scene, but it's a very good presentation, and it catches Sakura off guard. She gets overwhelmed in the moment and tries to reach out to it. They have this moment where Kiro can't get to her either. He's thrown back by some kind of force that none of them can explain. And then the Clow card, and we're just going to call it that because that's what it is, but it joins the club of cards that have tried to murder Sakura by walking her off a cliff.
I was floored that it actually went that far just because we've been talking about how gentle they were.
Gentle.
And then I was like, okay, guess not all of them.
Yeah, right. Like so far, I mean, if we're looking at murders here, like, or attempted murder, I mean, Shadow is basically guilty of assault, just throwing desks. Watery definitely Watery definitely tried to drown her and a bunch of other people. Honestly, it was kind of more Sakura's fault that she held on to jump, but like, if she couldn't fly, that would have been a murder, but it really would have been more a manslaughter because she did that to herself. She held on to it.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer here. I'm just saying that like I think we can kind of split the blame 50-50 on that one, but Illusion is the name of the Clow card. Straight up tries to just walk her off a cliff.
But then that actually brings up something that I think is interesting in the context of today's society, because dealing with the internet, dealing with how fast it kind of came into our lives, right? It just showed up on our doorstep in the 90s, and then all of a sudden everyone was connected out of nowhere, which I don't think we've ever stopped as the world to be like, so that was a lot all at once. Thanks. Which I think we should all do, and acknowledge the fact that our brains were pounded with information for 30 years in a way that had never happened before, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, things like catfishing happened and all that, and there's all kinds of scams online. Part of that is people creating an illusion, right?
Sure.
And people who do that kind of thing then want to sit back and kind of like you were just saying, be like, oh, well, they did it to themselves. And I was thinking about it and I'm like, kind of. But I think when someone is involved with another person with ill intentions from the beginning, and they build a fake situation that leads that person down a negative road, whether or not that person, like you were saying, kind of like walked off the cliff or whatever, who put them there, what pressure was put on them, and what horrible lies, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's one of those things where that's why I find Illusion as a card itself so fascinating. And I think that's why they had it do this. Illusions or creating, I don't know, it's like social, I don't know what you call it, but like that stuff is actually really dangerous. And it can cause people to like do awful things like this. So I think that is an interesting comment, or like timely comment on the world we're living in today. Don't you kind of agree?
You think about it far more deeply than I do, but maybe that's also just maybe because I have the manga background as well. So basically, all I'm thinking is that if I were a lawyer defending anime illusion, I would be saying, look, Your Honor, my client, the illusion card, didn't force Sakura to walk off that cliff. She did that on her own. On the other hand, over in manga land, illusion straight up pulled Sakura into the water and tried to drown her. So
well, but it's important that you had that initial reaction, because that's the point of doing the illusion. That's literally why people do that. So that most people will say what you said. They'll be like, oh, well, I mean, they did it to themselves, right? Okay. Yeah. But then it takes, the only reason I can think about that stuff, I think, is like, I think it comes from being a teacher, because I work with people from so many different age groups. So I've interacted with like 3-year-olds up to retired people for the last 30 years. You know what I'm saying? Wow. Or 20 years. And I hear all kinds of like really great wisdom from my older students. And I don't know. But it just made me, I don't know. I was like, yeah, it is dangerous. And it would probably make the most sense to make illusion like a murderous entity. Because can you think about, like, with the exception of things like maybe Disney, right? Like positive illusions? Like, not really.
No, I suppose not. Illusion is not necessarily inherently malicious, but yeah,
no.
Like, I mean, they can definitely use it to project other things that are like more wholesome. But
well, that was the other thing, is like, it makes me so fascinated. How would Sakura use it? And does she use it at all? Ever?
It does get used a couple of times in the series.
Okay.
It does get used in the Clow arc. And then it does get used in the Sakura arc. One of them is decidedly more positive than the other one, but she has to use the illusion to stop someone in a later episode that's not too far in the future.
Well, and I guess what you're saying too is true, though. It goes back to what the intention is behind it, right? So yeah, I think you're right. It's all about what the intention is behind it. And apparently, do you even think it was really trying to kill her, or do you think maybe to illusion this is just funny?
Even if it did think that just casual murder is hilarious, I don't think that really makes it any less malicious in that regard.
I guess you're right. Yeah, you're right.
I think it's just, in this case, it really just creates the idea that that illusion is functioning like a real ghost. And because I don't know if you know anything about Japanese like yokai or ryo, or no, the ghosts are onryo. They're not pleasant. Like, right. They're made of just unfettered negativity and hostility. And that's very much how illusion acts in this context of just trying to walk people off cliffs. Because I think that's the end goal with all of them.
I understand why it did that with her now, because we learn at the end the way that it functions, right? Or they say that she saw what she was most scared of, which would be her mother's spirit doing something awful to her, or potentially leading her to danger. Isn't that how they kind of explain it?
The illusion card makes each person see things that they either want to see or expect to see. That's why everyone saw something different.
They said something about, like, because everybody saw something different.
They do, and it does show
like a Bogart.
Kiro establishes that it shows what is on someone's mind, or at least in its wild form. It kind of just shows what's that hence why everyone in the initial group showed up thinking they were going to get scared, and they saw what they thought was going to scare them, except like, for the most part, like, Sakura wasn't really looking to be scared. She was thinking of her mom at the time, and her mom's image showed up, even though she was too panicked at the time to recognize it. Whereas Tomoyo wasn't expected to be scared at all. She was just hungry. And that's why it looked like a hamburger, quote unquote, right. Because like what was on her mind was that she was hungry.
No wonder. I couldn't figure out why I saw a hamburger. But now that I think of it, I was starving.
So it's why later in the episode, when we get back to it, as Kiro again explains, like, they all see Sakura's mother this time because that's what they expect to see.
Okay.
So without instruction, because illusion can be instructed to show specific things, when it's a sealed card. But in the wild, all it was really doing was just showing people whatever was most prevalent in their mind.
That is actually really fascinating. And also, because I'm trying to logic why it would with certain ones, like the girl just got scared away. It wasn't trying to make her walk off the cliff.
Nope.
Why did it target Sakura? And I think it's because she targeted it. She was
Yeah.
trying to capture it.
Maybe. Like I'm not even totally sure it was really trying to do anything. It just kind of, well, I mean, that's the thing. It turns into Nadeshiko and then kind of floats back. Like, what else is supposed to, I don't know. Did she think that
it's so weird? It
is a weird setup. Like, honestly, the plot is kind of a little, I don't want to call it contrived, but you're right. It's kind of like, the more I talk about, the more it doesn't make sense why Sakura is the only one that it tries to murder.
Because it's a big escalation.
It is. Because everyone else just gets scared and runs away. Whereas in this one, Sakura is overwhelmed by feelings and tries to go to her mom. And again, she just walks off a cliff because she is not paying attention to her surroundings anymore.
She's sort of in a trance, it seems.
Yeah, like. This is why I refuse to have feelings, so that I don't get let off of cliffs by ghosts pretending to be my dead relatives.
That would be really awkward. Yeah, it's like the more I think about it, the more convoluted it becomes. And I think that is sort of the nature of illusion itself, though.
It is. At the very least, it's not straightforward, just like illusion is.
Yeah, so I made a later note, though, because this is one of the cards that doesn't have a humanoid form. And because of that, they had to be extremely creative with how they were portraying it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they did a pretty good job with that, because it's a tough thing to figure out, right?
Yeah.
So we get this whole thing that happens the first time with her walking off the cliff. And can you walk us through how it goes down?
Well, yeah. So after she falls off a cliff and Illusion, having achieved its alleged goal of trying to kill Sakura, disappears immediately. So she passes out and falls off a cliff. And just fortunately, two things happen. A, Julian has not been cut from this episode. That's the first good thing. But the other good thing is that you get this ghostly hand appear and catch her and just kind of gently, float her down into Julian's arms. This hand, of course, being revealed to be Nadeshiko later.
I was like, I think that's what it is, but at the same time, I was like, still playing the game of maybe this isn't a Clow card, just for fun. And I was like what if the illusion? Yeah, I was like, what if it didn't mean to lure her off the cliff, and it's like, oopsie, and saving her at the same time? No, that's not what happened. But go ahead.
No, that would have been an interesting prediction, though. You can see that they're wearing different things. Like the Illusions version, Nadeshiko is wearing the dress that Nadeshiko's wearing in that one picture that was on the table, whereas the arm that grabs her is wearing this Nadeshiko's standard angelic dress is this green long sleeved thing that she appears in whenever she appears. So you can tell that. Plus,
that's smart.
This is such a weird thing, I think, that they point out, or at least it's weird to me. Like, they make a very big point of putting a sparkle on her wedding ring. Just like, hey, look, by the way, wedding ring. Just stare right at it. Look at it.
I didn't
right
notice
there.
That.
It's the only thing on this hand that doesn't have a transparency layer. It's solid.
They were trying to be as obvious as they could, I think.
It's a thing that anime does periodically with wedding bands. I just don't understand. I think maybe, I don't know this very well, that it might just be that in Japan wedding bands weren't as big a thing at the time. Ooh.
I think part of it is that romance and the idea of getting married being one of the greatest achievements in life, that was still a big through line at the time, and it's less so today. Where there's a lot of happy single people, But I think at the time and this show in the Japanese version is a lot more romantic than in the English or in the Cardcaptors dub. So that just might have been them that just might be a thing. You know what I mean? Just ooh, marriage, romance. They want to show it off. I don't know. Because it's a goal, right? So that a lot of people had. But what about this whole thing with Julian? First, we learn that Julian lives with his grandparents, right?
Yes.
And then I just thought this whole interaction was sort of, it came off a little awkward because he's been cut out so much.
It is. They kind of okay, so remember way earlier I did hint that like you'd be surprised what they cut. So this whole scene with them in Julian's house where they're talking about what happened, more or less. I think they, what happened to Kiro, what happened to Madison, et cetera, et cetera. Then he gives her a drink and she lays back down. And then it cuts to the next scene where Tori and Julian are walking home with Sakura. Well, there was an entire other half of that scene where Sakura talks to Julian about seeing her mom and asking kind of his perspective on what she saw. Like, do you think this is my mom? And Julian gives her some wisdom, or in this case, in the original, Yukito gives her some wisdom that, like, if it really was the ghost of your mom, do you think she would try to hurt you? And that's important information for later, but they cut that part of the conversation out.
But they bring it up later, though.
And then, you're right, when it becomes relevant to the episode, they put in the other half of that conversation.
If it was your mom, do you really think that she'd put you in danger, Sakura?
In the flashback form, like it's got a screen overlay like it's a flashback, but you cut out the part of the episode that it's flashing back to.
That is really, I thought I missed something because of that.
No, you didn't. I had to go back and check. They started playing that flashback scene. I'm like, wait a minute. And I just slammed the rewind, and it's like, no, they cut it out. And I'm putting it on the counter, by the way. I'm putting it on the Julian cut counter because it just is a baffling editing decision.
Well, it makes it play back weird. And it just feels like, I don't know, like that whole thing, it felt like two people who didn't really know each other that well for some reason to me. And then it got made better, though, when Tori came in and was sort of like explaining things and we got to see them as kids. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, we get a little bit of backstory with them, and where Tori explains, like, the reason she's afraid of ghosts is because I used to tease her about seeing spirits.
Yeah, and then he carries her home and they're walking together. That part all felt way more natural. I don't know why, but like the conversation at Yukito or Julian's house was just weird.
Yeah, and which is interesting because I don't think they changed the dialogue of it at all. It just...
I think it's because he's been cut out of other episodes so much.
You're right. It is because, like, this is episode 6, and like Julian has been cut out of so much of the series at this point that he still, if you were watching this in order, he still feels like a stranger.
He really does.
Yeah, he's just her brother's friend.
Yeah, who lives with his grandparents.
Not her crush. It's just her brother's friend.
But one thing I did know that I really enjoyed here after this was Kiro bringing Sakura the flower.
You didn't come to school.
Yup, I'm perfectly fine. Tori let me stay home today. Kiro!
I'm sorry that I couldn't help you, Sakura.
Yeah, so in the next scene where they're at Sakura's house, and Madison brings Kiro brings her a flower. It's great. It's a nice little scene, followed up by Sakura resolving that, like, she's not sure if it's a ghost. She doesn't know if it's a Clow card, but she has to, because it appeared as her mother, she resolves that she does have to at least go verify that it is not her mom.
I think that's fair enough. And also, I noted I liked that Madison and Kiro were as upset as they were about it, because it's easy to downplay stuff like that in a show like this.
Yep.
And it as someone who has lost their parent, their mom, the idea of this, like, the illusion of your dead relative leading you off a cliff is fairly heavy. So, like, it's good that they had the appropriate reaction. You know what I mean? Like, that actually, in a weird way, makes me appreciate it and not, like, feel any kind of, like, strangeness about the subject of the episode.
Yeah.
That's just my perspective on it. People can feel how they want. But I really enjoyed that. And, like,
Kiro had a good moment, too, where he's like, I don't know if this is a Clow card, but it was powerful enough to push me away. So, like, maybe this is beyond us at the time. Like a rare moment of Kiro being the responsible one.
And then they show the picture of a mom again. And I noted they showed it a lot.
Yeah, they did, but they had to refresh it so that, like, in the follow-up scene where they're back in the forest with a brand new costume, the umbrella costume, as I like to call it, they're all seeing the same thing this time.
Yes. And I did like this costume a lot better.
This is a way better costume.
Don't go falling off any more cliffs, all right?
Okay.
I want you to stay close.
I wonder if it'll show up again tonight.
I'll be ready for it this time.
Yeah. What does it look like?
It's okay. So take an umbrella and make a skirt out of that, and then just like also put some sand armor on the top half, because she's got like these metal plate shoulder pads on the top, and then she's also got like a headset and some boots. So
the shoulder pads remind me of football gear a little.
Now check this protective shoulder section that's made from the same stuff that football players use.
Yeah, like I don't know what was with Tomoyo putting like metal plates on costumes.
Oh, I do. She just walked off a cliff. She wanted to protect.
I don't think the metal plates would have. Yeah, well, she didn't give her a helmet. I don't think that would have helped.
She gave her headphones with a nice antenna.
She did. She gave her a nice
those.
headset.
I love the headset. I thought this was my favorite part. And the color scheme, I think it's gold and white. Am I right?
Yeah, it's like bright yellow. It's actually like a raincoat, basically. And
I love it.
I don't know why it's a raincoat. It is the same costume in the manga. Maybe it's because, again, in the manga, this took place by a lake, so she made it like a raincoat. But this is one of those costumes.
Just carried it through then.
This is one of those costumes that just doesn't that doesn't have a theme in common with the thing that they're catching.
Well, what kind of costume would? How do you design an illusion costume? You know what I'm saying? When the idea is that it portrays what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean
they would have had to just like put the design of the illusion on the dress or something.
Yeah, which they don't know until it's actually caught.
Yeah, and that would be weird. So I mean, yeah, it was that chance to be kind of creative, and I thought they did a good job with it.
It is. It's a good costume.
It doesn't tie in though, like you say.
Like, I'm not dumping on it. It's a solid, it's a solid 3 out of 5. Not my favorite. Not my favorite, not my least favorite. It's very middle of the road, especially compared to the bunny costume that was before.
I think that might be why I like it so much. Because I was relieved that wasn't the only one. I was like, oh, thank God.
It's like when we're comparing it to the bunny costume, every costume is better now. Even some of the other clunkers we'll see later.
Oh, yeah. But we get the same thing happening again here, basically. And I did note that the blank smile they have on the illusion mom is very creepy, actually, the longer it goes on, because she just doesn't react to like anything in any way,
which I think is actually a smart animation decision, because it's like,
yes,
illusion is copying the photograph that they have, so it has a single static face that it can mimic. It's just that.
And Sakura Kiro gets blasted back again. And then Sakura walks off the cliff again. And I wrote, oh my gosh, you get a grip. How are we going to do the same thing twice in a row? But then I was kind of like,
yeah, fool me once, shame on you.
But also, I'm sure even going into that, knowing what you're going to see, seeing your dead parent is still jarring. Like, I don't know. It just probably would be. I don't know. But it just seemed like she was sort of overwhelmed to the point where logic disconnected. But then, like you said, we get the flashback, right?
Yeah, well, so she falls off a cliff again, and she's very distraught that her mom has tried to kill her a second time, and then it flashes back to the scene that was cut out of the Cardcaptors dub of Julian explaining, if it was really your mom, do you think she'd want to hurt you?
Your mom, do you really think that she'd put you in danger, Sakura?
No. My mother wouldn't do that. Why?
And that's where Sakura snaps out of it, summons the fly card, and goes back up to the top of the cliff to finish things, which is, in this case, it is just all she really does is just declare that the card is not her mom, and that is more than enough to kind of break the illusion as it starts to like flicker and show the illusion pattern behind it, which is this neat kaleidoscope thing.
You are not my mother. Who are you?
Kind of pattern. I don't know what they use to make it. I think it's just straight up kaleidoscope paper that they put I'm pretty sure it's all it is. It's just kaleidoscope paper that they put under the layer. It moves, but it's simply it just simply slides.
Mm-hmm. I liked it though. I thought it looked cool, and this is where I noted that it was a pretty creative and interesting way to give a non-humanoid card a form that we can see visually. Because the magic of illusion doesn't really have a form.
No,
right?
It doesn't. But the pattern is enough for Kira to be like, oh look, it's the illusion card. I know what that is. And then she's able to catch it. And she is happy to know that it is not, in fact, the ghost of her mom trying to kill people. It was just another rogue Clow card. Everyone can be happy now.
Yes. What a relief. I think we can all agree that we don't want our dead relatives murdering people. So that is a nice way to close that out. I did note, though, that I like the way that they have it go up to the twinkling sky. I thought that was really sweet. And we get one last thing at home. What happens?
That's just where Sakura has to go to cheerleading practice, but she drops a present off at her mom's picture first because, it's mom's birthday. And then on the way out, we see the full ghost or angel of Nadeshiko, rather.
Okay, Tori, see you later.
She had me worried this time, I have to admit. But she'll be just fine.
See, that's the thing. We know that Tori grew up being able to see spirits. So really seeing his mom is something that he used to see a lot. It's mentioned earlier in the episode that he hasn't seen her recently, but he used to see her. So it's not something that he really freaks out about. It's just like, oh, hey, Mom, thanks for visiting.
Yeah.
And he goes back to reading his newspaper, which I looked at that newspaper. I couldn't find any readable stories on it.
Bummer. I love looking at those. Those kind of details, though, just to see what they put in there. I think there's in Sailor Moon, Sailor Mercury will scan things with her computer or whatever, her visor. And if you look at the actual text, I think one of them is literally just lyrics to an old song.
That would be great.
That is what? Okay.
I don't remember if this is the episode where Tori has he has this distinctive blue shirt with a word on it. I just don't remember if this is the episode where that came from.
I don't think so.
I gotta remember it. I'm gonna pull up the thing while we're talking about it. But yeah, that's how the episode ends. I think overall it was fine. I didn't mention it earlier while we were at the actual scene, but this is the episode where I mentioned that it kind of shows Carly McKillop's inexperience a little bit, because the scene with her talking to her mother the second time is supposed to be a very heartfelt scene. And you can tell that Carly is just not quite able to get that emotional range yet.
I'm coming. Are you really my mom? What are you doing here? Mother, are you lonely? Do you want me to go with you?
Yes. It feels a bit flat. Whereas if you listen to the Japanese version, Sakura Tange is obviously a more experienced actor and is able to convey more pain of hey mom, why are you trying to kill me? Carly McKillop felt kind of flat here.
I agree with that. And I remember, because you've said she's younger doing this, it really kind of showed just the lack of life experience, but also this episode is extremely highbrow when it comes to the issues that they're dealing with. And it's stuff that most of us as humans, we all have to lose our parents eventually, as long as no parent wants to outlive their kid. We'll say that.
Of course.
So it is something that we sort of universally all have to deal with. And unfortunately, in Sakura's case, some kids do deal with it at a very young age. So asking an actor who is around that same age to be able to put a nuanced performance forward when perhaps they lack the life experience to understand that was really a lot. So I can't really fault her for being flat.
No,
You
of
know what
course
I
not.
mean?
I'm not faulting her. Like, again, she was 11 at the time. Like,
Right.
her talent, her abilities were only beginning. I'm just, like I said, I'm
Well, I
saying that
imagine though she got this episode and had no concept of what was really like of like it there. I can't imagine she looked at this and like had any idea of how to like bring up emotions like that in
yeah,
herself, you
that's like,
know?
it's just purely an experience issue. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, I'm not taking a huge dig at her. I'm just saying, like, this is unfortunately one of those episodes that shows that she was relatively inexperienced.
No, you're not wrong. It's very flat. The delivery was not the best. She's definitely a lot better in other episodes.
Yeah. Also, I did finally look it up. Yes, Tori is wearing a blue shirt with the word "basic items" on it, and that's just, man,
What's
I
the
love
word?
basic items. It's actually two words, but it's just, I love when Japanese just put, like, Japanese clothing just puts random English on there. It's just
Like we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but just like, see, now I want to get a custom printed. I want to get
Basic item.
I want to get basic item, but I want to put it in Japanese as basic items.
I think that's great. It reminds me because I think someone has said like, oh, wouldn't it be hilarious if like in Japan they just get random like water like on their arm or whatever as a tattoo the way we do here. And I think now we have the answer. They just put it on clothes.
They do actually. My Hero Academia apparently does that. Deku, a lot of his shirts just say "shirt" on them, like in character. Like that is like a visual pun. I'm not even sure you call that a pun. It is a joke. In My Hero Academia, that several of Deku's shirts just say "shirt." And I think he has more than one of them.
That is so funny. I love that. Okay, so let's rate this week's episode as a whole.
Sure.
I will go first. I say 3.5. I think it concept wise is a lot. It didn't really bother me, but it just feels like a huge jump from where we were last week in like the content, right?
Yeah.
And it's a little like, I don't know. I think for me it could have been done better in a lot of ways. In the Nelvana, I think some of the minor cuts they made in this episode, plus the major cuts they've made in other episodes, made chunks of this feel weird.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Then there was the disappearing nose. There was just a lot of like dings this week for me. But yeah, 3.5. What about you?
I would agree with a 3.5-ish range because this episode is a 4-ish, in the Japanese one. It's a good episode. It's one of those episodes that actually tries to let the series be a little more emotional, like, because it tackles a hard topic. It confronts Sakura's pain of losing her mom head on. The Nelvana dub unfortunately blunts that a little bit with, again, Carly's performance not being up to snuff, and just a weird editing choice of cutting out half of Julian's scene.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, see, the thing is, I don't want I would hate to lose the scene that follows that where Tori and Julian are talking about Sakura, but I feel like maybe that would have been more expendable than cutting out the scene that you're gonna flash back to later.
Yeah. Well, I liked that scene the most too, though, out of that whole interaction too.
Exactly.
So it's like, what do you do?
I don't think it's cuttable.
It's not really.
I don't know what else to cut, really. So
yeah.
we're just
I think they were stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, because again, every episode has to get down to America's like 18 to 20 minute requirement. So you have to cut 2 minutes out of any episode to begin with. Like,
yeah,
something's got to go.
I will say about Carly's acting one more thing. I don't know who did the direction for it, when they're in the booth or whatever.
Sure.
But whoever was there that day, I think could have gotten more out of her if they knew how. Does that make sense? Because I work with students and they are capable of understanding high level concepts like this, but it sounds to me like no one took the time to explain it to her.
Yeah, a lot of acting is just as much a lot of quote unquote bad acting is just as much bad directing. Like a good director can get an inexperienced performer to do what they need.
They just need the right reference point, because all they had to do was be like, listen, you're not going to understand the mom thing, but we can find something you do understand, and then we can draw on that, you know?
Hey, Carly, have you ever had a dog die?
Seriously, it can be like that. Like, or if they are into, one thing I use for music all the time, what do you guys rate it? Let us know. I'm sure most people will probably be where we are, but I don't know. It's always fun if they don't
This
agree.
might be someone's favorite episode for all I know. This one has one of my favorite faces in it. It's like, I think, did I write it down? I think
it's Chelsea without a nose.
No, there's yeah, it's right after, yeah, no, they didn't cut it. It's right after Madison says, like, I saw a big hamburger, and Sakura just cuts to this befuddled face, which I thought that they might cut because they like to cut some of her reactions, but no, I'm pretty sure they left it in. I think that's going to be the thumbnail this week. But yeah, it's like, it's just in there.
Yeah. We do have Kiro's corner still, and we get a little bit of him saying how, like, they dug more into Sakura's past this week, which made the episode unique. And then it's about the second costume, which we've already sort of discussed.
Sakura actually wore 2 battle costumes in this episode, but this one was my favorite. Guess I'm just a bit of a sucker for shoulder pads, huh?
I'm looking at it again now, and like I was underselling how big these shoulder pads are. Like, well, no, I wasn't, because I said Saiyan armor. I was like, yeah, you know what? You're not too far off. Like, they're big.
It seems the nuanced response I have to it, like I said earlier, is that Madison was worried about her more after she walked off a cliff, and whether or not it would have done anything, I'm sure in the creation process, I can see her being like, I've got to do something,
right,
like, to protect her. Like, that's what I like to take away from it. That's my headcanon.
Never a helmet.
No, what's a helmet for?
It's certainly not for falling off buildings.
I think it's just because you can't make helmets look fashionable.
It's pretty hard to do. Also, just one more ding at just Tomoeda in general. So that cliff that she falls off of twice because it's got like broken railings. They never fix those railings, and that's going to become a problem more in this series. So someone on the Tomoeda City Council is going to be getting some bad reviews.
Well, you know, whoever decided that, like, had been driving around and they're like, oh, they still haven't fixed this road or whatever it was, and they're like, I'm gonna put it in my show. I love to think about why people do certain things like that with shows like this. And yeah, I don't know, I still, even though it's a 3.5, I still enjoy it.
Yeah, it's still fine. It's like like we're definitely
it's better than Jump.
It is better than Jump. It does have a better overall story. It's got a better through line for it. And yes, at least unlike Jump, where, you know, its big thing was like gathering up stuffed animals, which is completely unrelated to jumping. At least Illusion did like make people see things and then, you know, left them to their own devices, like, say, oh, I don't know, walking off cliffs.
Yeah, it did its function, and then that was kind of it. And it made, I think, at least once I understood how it worked, it followed its own logic better, right? And I appreciate that when it comes to world building and all of that. Also, again, like I said, I'm excited to see how she uses it more so than this episode. Like, because it's like we were discussing earlier, it is all about intention behind it. And I guess it sounds like we're going to see both examples. And then just to wrap up with a little question about trivia, but I believe she only used Fly this week, right?
Yes, she used, I wrote it down. I believe she only used she used Fly twice, strictly speaking. But yeah, she used it to chase it once, and then she used it to recover from falling off the cliff again.
And it's already kind of becoming clear 6 episodes in that Fly is one of her staples.
Oh yeah, Fly is used in almost every episode. Like, it's just, it is one of the only cards that is basically for every situation, because there's almost no situation in this entire adventure where flying isn't useful. And I think that's why Clamp decided to give her Fly in the very first adventure, because they kind of built her approach to card capturing around having the ability to fly. It's not like,
it's kind of a more interesting, because they could have given her anything first. There's so many cards
they could have, but
having it be a utility card that isn't an attack was very interesting, really smart, and not common for like a hero's first ability to be like that.
Yeah, especially because, like, you know, she's 10. She couldn't get around. Like, sure, she's on rollerblades a lot, but she needed to be able to move around town more. And I imagine that
I never even thought about that. Imagine the freedom she must feel
Yeah,
for a
I
kid.
imagine she probably flies more often than we see. Like,
Right?
to
I
get to
would.
various places.
Why would you walk if you could just fly
Why
through the sky?
why would you walk? Well, it's because, well, you maybe not, but Sakura is she's kind of weird as a magical girl goes, that she's handed this deck of magic cards, and for the most part, she goes out of her way to not use them. So it's like, or
That,
she
but
only
she also might not want to hit a plane.
she
Fair
also
enough.
I don't think she flies quite that high, but yeah,
Right.
Sakura's weird in that, like, she's given this magic, and for the most part, she only ever uses magic to fight magic. She very rarely ever uses it in her everyday life.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just her attempt to continue to be normal, or it just doesn't occur to her. It's like, girl, you have magic. Like,
It probably
embrace it
takes
slightly.
energy out of her. Don't you think?
Well, it does later. But right now, the Clow cards, for the most part, the way it works in the Clow arc that we're in, for the most part, the magic's kind of self-contained. It's not really well explained, but
I think part of it is, think about it like this. We have, as an audience, more of a perspective on it than her character does from inside the world. So when you're that age and when you have this whole thing happening, I think the cards would be kind of scary a little bit. And you have Kiro and there's all these rules that keep coming up, and I would be like, I don't want to break a fucking rule by accident.
Maybe, I don't know. If I was 10 and I was given a card that let me fly around, I'd be doing that all day.
But what if you're like, okay, maybe we have different levels of anxiety. We probably do.
I'd be flying out my window.
I would be thinking, like, what if I break a rule while I'm flying and then the card stops working while I'm like up in the air? Right?
That's definitely not something
I do something considered. I don't know. That's kind of crap I would be worrying about if I were her at that age with all of those cards, because they would seem so powerful to me after not having anything like that in my life. Right?
Sure, but how do you learn them if you don't mess around with them?
Well, that's why I would have to have a Luna or a Kiro to be like, do the thing, right? Because as a kid, I would be too scared.